Do spam or not do spam? That is the question. Question. Hello everybody and welcome back for some more Edain. Today, I've got a 1v1 replay for you, and it's as if I'm going back to my roots. Because in the first ever video I posted, it was a 1v1 replay, and I was playing Gondor, just like I am now. And just like in that game, in this game, I'm using a very similar opening. I'm going for a barrack start, I'm sending this starter battalion over here to creep these bardmen, and grab this farm. I'm sending this starter battalion over here to grab this farm, and then over here to grab this farm, and then over here to creep these bardmen. And grab this farm, and I'm also getting Pippin. So far, so boring. So, why this replay in particular? Well, because in this replay, I use a slightly different strategy. A different strategy? That's ridiculous! You're doing the exact same thing that you always do in every game you ever play, Goodfella. To which I reply, well, yes, actually, I am, so far. But, as we'll see a little bit later on, I do use something different. And one thing that I'm doing different is I'm using my scout hero to scout. Who would have thunk it? Scouting with a scout hero. But actually, a lot of people don't actually scout with scout heroes. And in fact, they use them for creeping instead. But the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to know what my faction what my enemy faction is. I know who he is, it's WCP. And now, as we see, this is my fog of war, so all this grey area is what I can't see live in the game, and this non-grey area is what I can see. So now, just from this little bit of wall, and of course from these units, I know there's Imlargis. So very early on, within the first few minutes, I know there's Imlargis, and so I can start to adapt my strategy to play against Imlargis. So that is why scouting is so important. I'm also using Pippin here on his rock throw mode to target these Imlargis units, and hopefully I can get a few kills. Getting a few kills against Imlargis battalions is so important because killing just one unit in the battalion reduces their damage output by 1/5. And it looks like Pippin is going to get a kill here because this guy is on red, and very soon he will die. Now, here is WCP's starter battalion, and he's creeping the warg. He's only got 3 units in this battalion now, so that seems that he didn't creep that warg very effectively. I predicted that he sent it in, and 2 wargs attacked at the same time, whereas it would have been much more beneficial for him to target 1 warg at a time, although it's a little bit difficult. If you would like to know how to do it, you can have a look at one of my how to creep videos. So here we see I had to move Pippin back a little bit, because he started to chase him down with these Imlargis units. So it is dangerous to start using Pippin to attack units in that way, because if you lose track of him, the enemy can send in his battalion and actually kill your scout hero, and you can lose him in that way. But if your macro is good, it is quite a nice idea to harass in that way. Now let's have a look here. Let's have a look at the damage that these Imlargis units do against these Gondor soldiers. Look at them all just absolutely dissolve to the Imlargis swords. And actually that was a mistake on my part. That wasn't me thinking, oh, maybe I can win this battle. It was just playing bad micromanagement. I didn't mean to attack there. What I should have done, and what I wanted to do even live in the game, was actually just run away from those Imlargis units, because I know how good Imlargis units are against Gondor. They're extremely good, as we saw there, because they just deal so much damage to them, and the Gondor units die before they can really start to deal quite a lot of damage to the Imlargis units, unless they start to really surround them and flank them. Now, obviously that's also the case when you're playing against Mordor, because Imlargis units absolutely wreck orcs, but with orcs, it's like you have so many of them that you don't really care if they die, but you do care if some of your Gondor units die. So really Gondor is a bit of an awkward middle child in this matchup, in that you know, you really don't want to lose them, but yet you still do lose them because they're not that great against Imlargis swords. So here is exactly what I was talking about. You have to be careful with your scout hero. You have to run away as soon as your enemy starts to charge in with some swords. But when they stop charging in with some swords, you can go ahead and run back and be very annoying in that way. And not only is it annoying, you can also gain quite a big advantage by killing the units, once again, especially versus Imlargis. So here you see he's sending a lot of his units in. Once again, he charges him down. He's sending a lot of his units in to creep this troll layer. So it may have been more beneficial for him to split and use just 1 battalion to creep this troll layer, as you may have seen in my how to creep videos. Once again, another shameless plug for my how to creep videos. But you may have seen that actually 1 battalion of Imlargis units can creep a troll. So it maybe would have been more beneficial for him to do that and use the rest of the units to try and protect this farm from being destroyed, which unfortunately for him, it has been destroyed. Now I'm also creeping at the same time with this 1 swords unit and this 1 pike unit. So I'm splitting my armies a little bit better than he is. All that being said, he is over here, and he's got this level 2 battalion, which was previously over here. He's creeped these wildmen, got it to level 2, and now it's much more easy to creep the troll for him. He's also, Wargs I should say, over there. He's also creeped this troll over here. Now he is splitting a little bit more, and he's going to attack this farm. So, look at this. Already I've got cavalry out. Let's have a look at my base. I've literally just got this cavalry stables and got this cavalry unit. That took me a while to say. This cavalry battalion out very, very quickly, even more quickly than I usually go for them, and I pretty much rush for cavalry almost in every game that I play. So this is an extremely, extremely early cavalry. Now, as we've seen before, if you've watched my balance discussion video, once again another shameless plug, but yes, if you've watched that video, which is very good if I do say so myself, another shameless plug, yes, if you've watched that video, you can see how effective cavalry is against Imladris, particularly if you combine it with archers and start to target the pikes. So here we are again. Now this is a bit of bad micromanagement from me, really. I mean, it's not such bad micromanagement in that I'm losing the cavalry, but that would be too aggressive. If I was to charge in and charge into the pikes and lose my cavalry battalions in that way, that would be too aggressive, and it would be a mistake for me to do that. But I personally believe, looking back at this, I was too cautious. I should have been more aggressive. I should have been attacking his units. I should have been really micromanaging my cavalry very carefully, but very effectively, to avoid the pikes and target these units, because as we see, he's only got one pike battalion, and this one pike battalion is covering this entire clump here of these swords. And as we see, like, we can see a few of these swords are out of the range of the pikes. So if I micromanage my cavalry very effectively, I could have potentially got a few kills in on these swords, and that would have been a huge advantage for me in this game. With all that being said, the mere presence of cavalry on the pitch already, once again I'm calling it a pitch, it's not football, it's a map. The cavalry of presence on the, that sentence was GG for me right there. Let me start it again. The presence of cavalry on the map already has forced him to clump a lot more, because if he splits any of these units, I can target the lone swords and absolutely wreck them with the cavalry. So he's forced to clump, and that means that he's not being able to split as effectively as I am. With all that being said, I've got a little bit of clump here, but it still remains the same. That look here, I've managed to harass this farm, and I've also, thanks to the cavalry, they gain map control in themselves. So I've managed to gain control of the entire upper half of the map very early on, thanks to this extremely early cavalry. Now, oh my goodness me, look at this! All of these townhouses. This is a change in strategy, you have to say, because very often, in fact, almost exclusively, I go for blacksmiths, and I go for the units, the resource, oh my goodness me, the upgrade discount on my units. That is potentially the only strategy that I go for with Gondor, and with a lot of other factions as well, is I go for the upgrade resource reduction buildings, and I quickly rush for upgrades on my units. As we will see here, this is one of the key features of this new particular strategy that I've thought of, that actually features quite heavily, not going for upgrades. Instead, as we see here, I've gone for some Ithilien Rangers, and once again it links into the fact that Imladris are particularly vulnerable to a combination of cavalry and archers. So really the role of these archers at this point will be to target the pikes and use my cavalry to come in and deal a lot of the damage to the rest of the units once the pike units are dead. I've got this tower here to try and deal some damage and also to try and protect this farm, but as we see, the damage of the Imladris units is so high that really that power was pretty much wasted, because it got destroyed instantly and I didn't have enough for a rebuild, and so I lost it. Unfortunately for me, I've also lost this ranger tent before this second battalion of rangers come out. I would have really liked that second battalion of rangers to come out, because once again it would have doubled my damage output from these rangers. Look at this, another example of bad micromanagement there, where I charged in my archers into this clump of Imladris units, which is just terrible news for me, because I lost a few units in there and I lost a lot of the damage output, and I had to use a heal so that I could regain some of that damage output, and also I wasn't at risk of losing that battalion. And oh my goodness me, he's coming with a breeze of my way, and he's also used the speed boost. This is terrible, terrible news for me. This is extremely risky. I can't emphasize how risky that is, but luckily I come in with the cavalry, and this is exactly what I was talking about. There's only one battalion of pike here, which is defending against all these pikes. It's kind of covering all these pikes from my cavalry charge, and I'm also targeting it with these archers, and there we go. He's only got one unit left in this battalion. Now they're a lot more vulnerable to the cavalry, and it's not only has it stopped the charge on these units, which without the cavalry there, they potentially and almost definitely, this huge clump of Imladris would have destroyed this little clump of mine of units. within seconds, because the damage output is so high from the largest units that would have been a huge setback for me in the game, which as long as WCP played well after that, if he had killed this clump and he played well after that, really there wouldn't have been a whole lot for me to do to try and win after that situation. Because it's just a lot of money to lose, and you know, without gaining any other advantage, that would have been GG under perfect play from both players. But luckily, thanks to the cavalry being there, it kind of saved my ass. And also the archers targeting the pikes was a huge help. So already it seems that this little strategy of mine is working reasonably well. And oh my goodness me, dear God, Goodfella is getting a hero in, what is this, less than 10 minutes? I mean, I don't know because I haven't got a timer on, but this is extremely early for Goodfella to get a hero, and oh my God, it's Strider. He costs 2,500 resources, doesn't he? Indeed he does. So this, once again, you can see already the strategy is very, very different. So for all those who doubted me in the early game where I was doing exactly the same as I always do, shame upon you. Indeed, it is a different strategy, and I've got this hero at Aragorn. Now, how have I managed to afford to get Aragorn out, as well as these cavalry units, as well as these archers, and as well as a second ranger tent here, and I've still got a bit of a cash flow, and I've got a 3rd battalion out, and I'm upgrading this archery range to the 3rd level, and it seems bizarre that I managed to afford all this. Well, let me tell you a little secret. Let's have a look at these infantry units. How many infantry units do I have here? Well, let's count, children. I've got 1 sword unit here, I've got 1 sword unit here, and I've got 2 battalions of pikes. I don't know what the hell that was. I'm going to swiftly move on for that. Just forget as if I did that little nursery around there. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Yes, I've got these 2 battalions of pikes, and actually these are the only 2 battalions that I recruited of this little infantry army here. These are my starter units. I've actually lost no battalions in this game so far, and I've only produced 2 units from my barracks. So that is the key to this new little strategy that I've thought of, and it involves not spamming. Oh my God, Goodfella is not spamming. Hallelujah. But spamming is so good. It's so good, and it's so easy as well to play a good game by spamming. Well, I've decided to switch it up a little bit. One of the reasons for that is because I believe it works particularly well against Imladris, once again, to use the archers in combination with the cavalry. So a nice mixed army like this, instead of just a whole load of bunch of swords and pikes and swords and pikes and swords and pikes, eventually upgraded, sometimes it works a little bit better to do it like this. So that's one of the reasons. But also I believe that this is potentially a viable alternative strategy, an alternative meta strategy to the spam, which is, I have to admit, extremely, extremely powerful in this current version of Edain. Now, I said that I have been not looking to go for early upgrades, although I am looking to go for early fire arrows, because once again, this is going to boost the effectiveness of the archers. And really, it's the archers that are going to be dealing the damage for me. The archers, first of all, this is the role of the archers, and this is another thing about this little strategy that I've come up with, is that each unit has a very specific role. So here, the role of the archers is to target the pikes. Once the pikes are dead, the cavalry can come in and trample, and it can trample the units and stop the units in their place, and then the archers can start to target whatever they like and start to do a lot of damage and potentially kill a lot of the battalions. Now, it's all well and good having archers, but if you lose them to cavalry charges like this, it's terrible news. So that was bad micromanagement from me once again. So that is not saying that this strategy is bad. It's just saying that the execution of that strategy was bad. Once again, bad micromanagement. Look at all these poor dead horses. And this battalion is in a lot of trouble because it's only got 2 units left. So yes, you can use this strategy, but it requires a lot of micromanagement. And look here, I'm already in quite a bit of trouble because all these units are upgraded, and he's got a lot more command points than me, as we see here. And now here, this is very extremely micromanagement intensive. So I've got Aragorn here, and I've got Boromir here, and I've got to be sure that these guys don't charge into the middle of these units. So I've got to kind of protect these. I've also got to make sure that my pikes are covering my archers as well as my sword units. So here he charged in his cavalry, so that was bad micromanagement from him to charge in. I've also used the Horn of Gondor here from Boromir, which is one of the main reasons why I got Boromir, is to freeze these units in place. These units frozen in place gives time for my archers to do a lot of damage to these units, and also an opportunity for my cavalry to come in, because these units will be frozen and they won't be protected by the pikes. So there you see, I targeted the pikes and he died within seconds to these upgraded archers, and it left a lot of this infantry army vulnerable to attack. So there you see, with a good bit of micromanagement, although not perfect micromanagement, because I've lost a few units in my archer battalions, as well as this battalion in particular of my cavalry is extremely damaged. Luckily, I didn't lose any of my heroes. That really would have been devastating for me to lose the heroes. It's extremely risky to go for early heroes in any game in a 1v1, because if you lose them, it's so damaging for you in the game, because think about how much money is locked up in these heroes here. 2,500 plus 1,800, what is that? 3,000, 4,000. Anyway, it's a lot of money. As we see, my math is absolutely terrible. Oh my god, Goodfella has gone for an outpost. Really, now you must believe that my strategy is very different in this game. Why have I gone for an outpost? I've gone for an outpost, number one, to get this heroic statue, because it increases the armor and damage of my units by 20%. That's going to be great for my archers to increase them by 20%. It's going to be great for my tower guards to increase their armor by 20%, because really these tower guards, their main role now is to tank. Before it was my starter units, their role was to tank in their formation, so that these infantry can't just come in and absolutely wreck my archers. So I kind of form a bit of a shield between my infantry army and my archers to deal the damage. That is the plan anyway. It might not necessarily work very well, but that's the kind of plan that I've come up with. The pikes there obviously are there to counter his cavalry, and also the tower guards, which is quite nice, is yes, they can tank, but also they've got the secondary function, because they are pikes, and very good pikes at that, they defend very well against the cavalry. So it is quite a nice combination of these archers and tower guards. They work really nicely together, in fact. Now, he's got cavalry of his own, and almost a lot of the time it becomes cavalry battles. I've talked before about catapult battles, but very often in Edain it also becomes cavalry battles, because cavalry is so excellent in Edain at the moment. It can gain you map control so easily, as we saw earlier on, and at the moment WCP is kind of winning the cavalry battle because his cavalry is upgraded. So I've been forced to send a few pikes over to kind of help out my cavalry, and thank God it's tower guards, because they're so good at being pikes. I mean, really, well done at being pikes, tower guards. You're very good at it. So these guys are kind of coming in to support my cavalry in this little cavalry battle that's going on. So far I'm kind of healing up. This is the other reason why I've gone for the outpost. I've gone for the healing well, so that I can heal my units and I can keep them alive, so that I can save more money and I can invest that money in more heroes. And also now I'm going for upgrades. So yes, I've gone for late upgrades, but I'm not saying don't go for upgrades if you're going to go for this strategy. I'm just saying potentially postpone it a little bit. But when you have the opportunity, and when you, in particular, you have a cash flow, let's go back over to my Palantir here. When you have a cash flow, then really you need to be spending that money. And as we see here, because he is winning the cavalry battle, he's destroying a lot of my outside farms, and that means that I'm very command point limited at the moment. So I'm getting quite a bit of a cash flow here. So I'm not allowed to, or I'm not capable, thanks to WCP's very nice cavalry harassment, I'm not capable of spending these resources. So I've got a cash flow, not through bad economy management, because if it was up to me, I'd be spending all these resources, but I simply can't, because I haven't got any command points spared. And I also aren't available to get these heavy armor and forge plates, which I'd like to. Potentially that is bad macro management there on my part. And indeed, I should have command points available. So it is bad macro management, but it's bad macro management, which has been further highlighted by WCP's excellent cavalry harassment. So once again, let's have a look at my army composition, and I am clumping. It's an extreme clump here, a very extreme clump, and in fact both players are clumping. Now, one of the huge reasons why both players are clumping is because cavalry is on the field. As soon as cavalry comes onto the field at the current moment in Edain, it means clumping, it's almost clumping is forced upon you, because if you have like one battalion of pike, one battalion of sword, and one battalion of archers, which I would like to do, that would be very nice to be able to split in that way. And once again kind of split the function of my army, so that the archers are there to destroy the pikes, to deal a lot of damage, whereas the swords are there to tank and deal damage of their own. The pikes are there to defend against the cavalry, but how are the pikes gonna defend against the cavalry when cavalry is so goddamn powerful in Edain at the moment? If you have one battalion of pikes, especially these weaker pikes, versus 3 battalions of cavalry like WCP has here, or 3 battalions of cavalry like I do here, really the cavalry is just going to completely disregard those pikes. They're just going to charge through and destroy everything. You're going to lose all that money, and that's going to be a huge setback for you. So that is why, at the moment, I think clumping is so prevalent in Edain. Someone did leave a comment saying to me, why do you think clumping is so prevalent in Edain when it's not that prevalent in a lot of other versions of BFME2? And I believe that is one of the primary reasons, at the moment at least, why clumping is so important in Edain. That may change if cavalry changes in the future. Now, let's get back to this specific game. We see here that he's got a very high number of enlarged units, and they're all fully upgraded, which is very, very scary for me. However, I've got the advantage of having a mixed army, so once again, I'm targeting the pikes. Here is another huge battle, and here the micromanagement once again is very important, and also the formation that my army is in is very important. There's a bad bit of formation. He charged into my archers, and they died. Unfortunately, he went a little bit too far and charged into the pikes. Now, here my swords are at the back of my army. Really, they should be at the front. Here I've had to move my archers out of the way because they're suffering a lot of damage from the sword units here, which do huge amounts of damage, don't forget, because they have so much damage, especially when they've got forged blades. The eagles come in, which are very effective because they kill one unit at a time in a battalion, which is extremely effective against enlargers, don't forget, because they've got so few units in their battalion. Here, Bombadil has been summoned, and he charges him in right into my archers, and he does very high damage, but he's not very tanky, so he's not going to be too much of a trouble. So thanks to the eagles there, and especially the cavalry charge, enlargers are in a little bit of trouble, so they're going to have to retreat through fear of losing this entire clump, and that's going to mean they're going to be able to destroy his outpost here. Now, if there was any other faction where it wouldn't have been such a huge risk to lose this, where it wouldn't have been such a huge risk to lose this little clump, it may have been advantageous for him to come in and actually attack my army and potentially kill it. With him largest, really, he was forced to retreat there, because if he does lose this clump, think how much money is invested in this clump. If he was to lose that clump, it would have been GG for him right there. So really, he had to retreat and get to the well and make sure that he didn't lose that army, but at the cost of losing his outpost. Now, all that being said, I have finally got upgrades on my unit, so even if it was a different faction, I would have done reasonably well, because not only now have I got a mixed army, which, as I've said before, is so good in Edain, if you can micromanage it very well. Not only that, I've also got upgraded units, which is basically the other main style of strategy, and I've also got heroes, as we see here. Gandalf comes out as well. So, even against any other faction, I think I would have done reasonably well, although it would have been more debatable. As we see here, once again, I'm limited on command points because he's constantly harassing my command point buildings on the outside. And that is why cavalry is so effective. They can just gain map control for you, and particularly if your enemy decides to go for command point buildings on the outside and resource buildings on the inside, as I have done here, as we see all of them are upgraded with resources. Potentially that is a mistake. I probably should have got at least 1 or 2 command point buildings, pantry buildings on the inside here to just maintain my command points. But once again, that is why cavalry is so effective in the Edain at the moment. Look at how quickly they destroy the outside farms. That is insane. That should be, personally, I believe that should maybe be changed in the next patch. But now, thanks to the upgrades, I potentially can start to win this cavalry battle on the field, especially because he lost a few of his battalions to my pikes when he charged in. So, here we are, I'm harassing over here, and oh my goodness me, I've built the Dolamra fortress, and oh my god, he's charging in with his units. This is disastrous news for me, surely, because he's going to absolutely decimate this. Look at the damage that Imlargus does. Really, it's huge damage. That is the advantage of Imlargus in the late game. The amount of damage that they do to buildings, and even to units in particular. Look at it, it's almost destroyed. I used my real build, so this is like 2,000 resources. I'm not going to be able to save this now. He's definitely going to be able to destroy it, so surely that is a huge mistake on my part. Well, in a way, yes, but also I did think about it. I did think, should I send my units in here? Look at this, bad micromanagement. Once again, these swords not protected by pikes. Yes, I did think, should I stay here and protect it? But I felt, actually, no. Like, if he charges in now, I'm going to deal quite a lot of damage, particularly towards his pikes with my archers. And it's going to give me an opportunity to kill a lot of his units. So, yes, he's going to charge in and kill my fortress, but it's going to give me an opportunity to kill a lot of his units. And what's more important in this at this point in the game, where my economy is huge and his economy is suffering quite a bit, what's more important? Camping around my outpost and making sure that I don't lose it, or moving away from my outpost, kind of baiting him in, and then him losing units, because once again it starts to become to to a point where trading, even if the trade isn't in your favor, because indeed I did lose more than he lost there, 2,000 resources versus maybe 1 or 2 battalions of Imlargus units. That was a trade that was in his favor, but because my economy is so much stronger at this point, really it starts to become in my favor because I can afford to replace that stuff. Can he really afford to replace those units? Definitely not to the same degree that I can replace that outpost. As we see, I've just gone ahead and rebuilt it now. So here's Gandalf coming quite useful. As we saw, WCP didn't use Gandalf so usefully in his game against Dud, if you saw it. Because he lost him in the first few seconds. Now, Gandalf is an anti-spam hero because of his Wizard Blast, but he's also pretty good against Imlargus because the Wizard Blast knocks back the units, and that gives a nice opportunity to kill the units while the Imlargus units can't retreat. So once again, all the time I'm targeting the pikes with the archers. Target the pikes with the archers. Target the pikes with the archers. That's the whole thing that I was thinking throughout this whole entire time, and then I can come in and trample the rest. And that really is so effective against Imlargus. And also the heroes can come in and use their power, like Aragorn's Elendil, which is a formation disruption. As we see so many times with these clumps, formation disruptions are very important because if you can move the pikes away from the rest of the army, then the cavalry can once again come in and attack. And also Boromir's Horde of Gondor can come in and freeze units, and it gives your archers an opportunity to start to absolutely wreck that infantry. So I said many times before how effective Imlargus' powers are, the hero powers, the PowerPoint powers over here, how effective they work together in conjunction. That is definitely true for Imlargus, and it is particularly true for Imlargus. Their powers in particular work extremely well for each other, but it's not to say that other factions, like Gondor, that their powers don't work particularly well in conjunction with each other. And indeed, Boromir's Horn of Gondor and Aragorn's Elendil, as well as Aragorn's Athelas, which saves your heroes from death, work very, very well and very nicely in combination with each other. If you can get to Baragon to level 10 and he makes all your heroes invulnerable, once again, they work very well in combination with each other. So it's not only Imlargus that has that feature of their gameplay. So here we see, it seems as if it's worked pretty well for me. Now, it's either worked pretty well for me because it particularly works well against Imlargus, or it works particularly well for me because it is a viable different meta strategy to just the simple spam. Now, am I saying that this strategy is better than spam? No, I'm not. And I'm probably, if I was to judge it, if I was to call it at the moment, I would probably say that spam is still better, at least in the current state of Edain, because it allows you to split a lot more, whereas a mixed army like I'm doing here, archers, swords and pikes, with some early heroes, really you can't split as well with that, because when the cavalry comes out, you can't afford to risk losing your heroes, or even losing a lot of your units. So in the current state of Edain, it's probably not that effective, but if Edain was to change a little bit, maybe it would start to become more effective than spam, and I certainly would like to see a more micro-intensive, a more mixed army with heroes, and you know, all the nice play, all the nice cavalry, pikes, swords, archers, all the different types of units, as we'll see, because I start to invest in some Dalamrath units here to buff my units. I think that would improve the multiplayer experience of Edain. Anyway, that is my personal point. I would like to highlight here my starter units are still alive, which I was quite proud of in this game. Anyway, yes, and so let me just recap for you. While there's a little bit of a lull in the action, we're kind of just harassing resources at this point. The main ideas behind this strategy. So the main idea behind this strategy is go for late upgrades. By going for late upgrades, it frees a lot of money for you to get heroes. Now, that's all well and good, but if you don't get upgrades, a lot of your units are gonna die, and because when your units die, your heroes are gonna die too, so really that's a bad strategy. It just doesn't work out. My idea is that if you get a mixed army at the same time, then that kind of compensates for not getting those upgrades. So if you get a mixed army of archers and cavalry, and you get pikes of your own to defend against your enemy's cavalry, really you don't need upgrades as much as if you were going to just go for a simple spam of swords and pikes. Because you can you can rely more on micromanagement, so you can really target the pikes with the archers, come in and trample with the cavalry in that way. And as we see, it worked pretty well against Imlargus. Like, remember when he used the Breeze of Manwë over here? I was in huge trouble. If I didn't have a mixed army at that point, I would have very likely lost that entire clump of army, and that almost would have been GG for me right there, as long as WCP didn't mess up. So, really, it's like one or the other. You can't kind of mix and match, although to some extent I did in going for these upgrades on the archers, but the point is not going for these heavy armor and forged blades upgrades on all of your massive command point units that you've done to spam out a lot of the swords and pikes. So I think it's potentially an alternative, and it's quite a nice alternative. It requires a huge amount of micromanagement. It is very difficult. It's a lot easier to spam, but I do actually enjoy it. You know, sometimes it's nice to switch up from spamming. So with all that being said, we'll go once again back to this game, and look at this. This is the battle of all battles. It's the end game. It's the elves versus the men, and look at this Breeze of Manway, and nice formation disruption, and a nice Boromir Bombadil in here, and look at that, a nice little Wizard Blast, effectively Sonic Song. Look at all this micromanagement here. That is bad micromanagement there from WCP. Very nearly loses Glorfindale. Indeed, he loses the scouts there, or the twins, I should say. And I believe I lose Faramir at this point. Now I've got to be extremely careful. Like there we see the cavalry charged into the pikes. I've got to make sure that my archers are in the right position. I've got to make sure that these guys are tanking some of the damage. These tower guards are completely the wrong position. They need to be here, tanking and defending against cavalry. Here I charge into pikes with my cavalry, but it's not too much of a big deal because once again cavalry is pretty strong here. Now in comes the Eagles to finish it off, but a lot of the units are dead, and Gondor calls for aid to come in and attack and destroy the largest, and here comes Rohan chanting death, 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 and oh my god. Well, all the units are Theoden, my king, all the units are already dead. Well, we'll just charge into the base and destroy them in that way, and oh, the gate is closed. Well, we're just going to have to wait out here and wait for the trebuchets to kill the walls. And then we can charge in. So yes, there we go. And the Eagles kind of just have to hover around and fly around and, you know, just do their own thing generally. So yes, here we go. Very soon the wall will be destroyed. And that's it. That's GG right there. There's no real coming back for this from WCP. It is GG now. And there goes the wall. And there they go. Now they charge in to finish off enlarges once and for all, and I kind of camp around here with my nice little clump here to go in through the gate for some unexplained reason. I don't know why I didn't just go in through this giant gaping hole in the wall. For some reason I decided to go in through the gate. Anyway, nevertheless, in they come to destroy the building here. And yes, it's very, very difficult to pull off this strategy well. And against someone like Mordor, I really don't think it would work, because you're just going to be completely overwhelmed with orcs. But is that because the strategy doesn't work, or because orcs are just OP? And oh my goodness me, I spoke too soon. In comes Gildor. He's going to save the day for... Oh, and he dies. With his imaginary sword out, he still dies. Yes, there we go. Oh, but here we go. Arwen's come out, and oh, it looks like she's pissed off Gandalf, and he hits her with his magic staff, giggity, and she dies. So there we go. It really is GG now, and I just have to destroy the remainder of his buildings. So a nice little different example of a different style of strategy that you can use. You don't have to spam to play well in Edain, although it certainly does help. Let me tell you, spamming is very, very effective in Edain at the moment. But yeah, there you go. It is so hard to do it, because you've got so many heroes, you've got so many different varied units to control and to control well. But if you can make it work, you can really make it work well. The other advantage of going for the early heroes is you get some nice experience early on. As you see here, Aragorn level 9, very nearly level 10. And when he gets to level 10, he is very effective. See there my Dol Amroth knights as well, which gain a damage boost to my units. Now, there's no real redundant units in that clump. That is one of the main focuses that you have to do if you want to use that strategy. None of your units can be redundant. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. I am going to have to take a short break from making these videos, I'm afraid. I've got a lot of work on at the moment, so I have to really focus on that. And also, I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks. So, unfortunately, there's not going to be any videos for 2 weeks. I hope you're not too disappointed. But I'll see you again after those 2 weeks, and hopefully I can get back into a regular upload schedule. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.